Hi there makers, it is Jo here, and today I've got a learn to sew video with a difference because I'm not really going to sew very much. I want to show you how to pre-treat lighter and slippery fabrics. If you've been tempted by a chiffon or a silk or a crepe de chine or charmeuse, but you've just thought, I really don't know if I can handle that fabric, then putting your fabric through a pre-soak to stiffen it up a little bit might be the answer. Today I'm going to work with a piece of chiffon and a piece of silk. I'm going to show you them before and after, and you can see how the fabric stiffens up. There's a couple of different ways you can do this. Today I'm going to show you a gelatin soak, but you can use just a spray starch. That's useful if you just want one particular area of your fabric to be easier to handle. So for example, you can use that on a collar. I have used it before on the edge of a wrap dress. I made the Elodie wrap dress, and when I tied it over, I wanted that edge that runs as a wrap over the front of the skirt to be really easy to handle and not have a wobbly or creased edge. So I just sprayed the edge there. I didn't spray all of my fabric or soak it all. I just wanted a little bit more control in one area. Today I'm going to show you how to pre-treat the whole piece, which will also aid cutting out for you too. So I'm going to try this technique with a chiffon because it's light and slippy. So we want to firm this up so it's easy to cut and sew. And I've also got a little sample of a Liberty silk. So this one is almost feels weightless, so you would need to use a lot of silk pins. So I'm going to firm that one up as well. Let's go and set up the soak. I'm working in my kitchen and it's got a tiled floor, so I've done a voiceover because my voice was quite echoey in the kitchen area. So hopefully you can follow along. In a jug, put 2 teaspoons of powdered gelatin, and then you're going to fill this up with 1 litre of room temperature water. This is just a baking gelatin. I've used a little of my kettle water which has been cooling down. And then you need to mix it so it's all completely dissolved. You can also use a leaf gelatin here, but you may need to dissolve that in a smaller amount of hotter water and then put that in your initial litre to make your first batch. You'll need to leave this for 1 hour, and then when it's finished, the gelatin will have bloomed in the water and be ready to add to more water. You'll need to add your bloom mixture with the gelatin in, and you need to dilute that so that you get a complete coverage of your fabric using just water that is as hot as your fabric can stand. So it will depend on your fabric. I've got a silk there, so I don't want it to be too hot, but I'm going to put in 2 more litres of water that will stand the temperature of my fabrics. Add a litre of water and 1 more. And that's our gelatin soak mix. Next, gently submerge your fabric. So you need to make sure that all of the fabric is under the water. I'm going to put the silk piece on top so it doesn't get squashed or lost, but it's all in the water mixture. After 1 hour, the fabric will have soaked up and it will have the stiffening qualities. I'm going to take the silk out first. I'm going to dry this one flat on a towel outside because it's a little bit more delicate, so I don't want it to be swinging out of shape on the washing line. This one, however, is a synthetic fabric, so I don't mind hanging this one out because this one won't change shape. I can hang this up and it can dry in the sun. You'll need to decide depending on your fabric composition. Okay, this is the silk that hasn't been in the stiffener soak, and this is the silk that is, so it can stand up. It's crisper and it's much easier to handle, so if I want to narrow edge hem this as a scarf, I can really deal with the edges, whereas this one is much more fluid and shiny and slightly bouncy. So it works really well on a silk. You need to do a hand wash to return this silk back to this nice smooth surface. So at the moment that feels a little rougher. So once my scarf is made, I'll give it a hand wash and I'll dry flat again. It makes the fabric much easier to handle under the machine. I don't even need pins now. I can just fold that narrow edge hem, just using the awl to give a little press. I don't even really need it to guide the fabric underneath. It also makes trimming out fabric easier because the fabric is crisper. It's holding away from where I'm trying to cut, not flopping towards the scissors. On the second pass, I'm going to give myself some insurance on the corners. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue just to hold those down. I'm also going to put a pin in each direction because that gives me something to hold on to when that bit is hidden under the machine sewing foot. Here I can just handle that under the machine, but not quite in the corners. I want that to be really good. And I'll show you a couple more tips for making silk scarves. When I do the second pass, I'm not going to start in the corner, I'm going to start at the side because that makes it much easier for me to get everything going, not screw up the corner before I start. Another way to handle the corners is to put yourself a little pull string in the corner. So I've just put some tacking thread in there. I'm going to sew to the corner. I've got the pin I can hold in at the very last minute and then pull it out. If you leave the needle down, then it's really hard to pivot your light fabric. So you just want to raise the needle so you can only just see the eye, but the tip is just holding the fabric in position. And now I can use that string to pull the fabric and keep it moving. That's a narrow edged hem, so it's got 2 rows of stitching on the wrong side and 1 row on the right side. Got some really beautiful corners even in this light fabric. Now it needs a hand wash to loosen it all back up again. Once it's washed, it returns back to its silky satiny finish with a lovely sheen on it, and it's back to being completely drapey. So you could do this for a shirt, a blouse or a dress. I've just hand washed out this piece of silk that I've made into a scarf. Same for the chiffon. It had a real drape to it before, but now it holds its shape. It's crisp and it's much firmer. I'm not getting a collapse when I sew with it. So this will make it ideal for cutting out, because now when I put it in position, just when I knock it, it moves as a whole piece of fabric rather than just changing shape. I can fold it in half and cut it, so I won't have to cut it between tissue or anything that takes quite a long time. I can even cut on the fold. Stiffening the fabric is perfect for cutting. You can even finger press it, so I can really easily get a fold. I can find the grain line, and when I shuffle my pieces of paper on here, then I'm not shifting the fabric around. I'm even going to go as far as to cut the Tilda blouse from Maison Fauve, which has pin tucks down the front. And ordinarily I might not choose pin tucks, but I think now I've got control of the fabric, I'll be able to put these pin tucks in. I don't need the tissue layers. I can just pin straight into the fabric within the seam allowance. Stiffening your fabric also works really well if you prefer to cut with scissors. Ordinarily you would be advised to cut slippery fabrics with a rotary cutter so that you can keep all the layers flat and stop them shifting away from each other. But I can cut really accurately even around those pin tuck shapes. To a degree, it will also stop your fabric fraying around the edges quite as immediately as it may have first done. You can manoeuvre it around much easier, and you can treat it like any other fabric. I'm going to add the pin tuck details. I'll show you those at the machine. I'm going to cut the rest of it out and very quickly put it together. I'll show you any bits that are made easier by using the gelatin soak. I'm creating the pin tucks in the sleeve and it's super easy. I've just got a couple of pins in each one. I've marked it with tailor's tacks and I can handle this directly under the machine. Stiffening the fabric has also made it easier to get started in this lighter fabric. And a back tack isn't chewing the fabric either. Even though you might think it's a bit of an effort to do the gelatin soak in the first place that would take time, the time you immediately gain back is by having beautiful finishes, easy to sew fabric. You'll definitely cut down on your fabric cutting time and any unpicking in delicate fabrics because everything sits exactly where you want it to. If you're gathering fabric because it's stiffened, then when you're sewing it on, you won't get any sort of flopping or loose fabric folding back and catching in your seam. So having the fabric stiffened is useful for distributing gathers. When your fabric is stiffened, it's much easier to hold your raw edges, whether it's a satiny fabric or a drapey fabric like chiffon, so you can sew accurately and you can eliminate that need for much tighter control with French seaming. So now I can just sew this seam and then zigzag the edge. The final thing that I'd like to share is if you want to use your overlocker, sometimes it's really difficult with a light fabric. I'm working with a chiffon here and you might find an overlocker chews it up too much, but once it's stiffened you can then use it, which is a real advantage because if you want your seams to be nice and invisible because you've got a sheer fabric, then this stiffening helps with the control under the foot. And I've got my diff feed on 0.7. I've got a great stitch, it's not all ruched up, it's not chewed at the end, and it really does help if you want to sew parts of your garment on the overlocker. Okay, so this is the top made up. I've really enjoyed sewing it, much more than if I had sewn this without the gelatin soak. Everything was really easy to control. I've got those pin tucks, I could press a seam allowance, I could get the gathering on the sleeve head. I've got a lovely hem that's not all rippled or wobbly or out of shape. And at the moment, this hasn't been washed, so it's still got that little bit of stiffness in it, but perfectly ideal to wear. I'm going to put this through the wash and see what happens. Okay, so now I've got all of the drape back of the fabric. It definitely feels like chiffon. And this time I didn't hand wash this one. I put this one through a rinse and spin on the washing machine. So it's definitely got all of the gelatin out. And this has been line dried. This print is called Corsage Real. And it's got a real wedding feel about it. And I think it would look great with white trousers. But if you fancy any other delicate fabrics, you can use Print on Demand from Minerva. That way you can get any of our exclusive prints on all kinds of different delicate base cloths. This is also a great technique if you're lining something. So we do have linings in these prints. That way you'll ensure that your lining is going to fit inside your outer piece because you won't be losing any accuracy on your lining seams. I hope that's helped you out today. It might make you really make the final decision to choose a fabric that you've been shying away from because you're not sure if you're going to be able to control it for cutting and sewing. This technique is fabulous for chiffon, georgette, silk, crepe de chine, charmeuse, any kind of lighter weight crepes, polyester fabrics that have a light GSM. All of those will benefit from this gelatin soak. Of course, you'll need to hand wash your garment afterwards to get rid of the stiffness and return your fabric to its initial finish. We would love to see you here again, so do subscribe over on YouTube. It's free, and you can also make a free account over at Minerva. You can share your makes there, show us what you've been up to. It doesn't have to be with fabrics from Minerva, and you don't have to take a professional photo. We just love to see what everyone has been up to. So do call again here for more videos and sewing chit chat, and we'll see you very soon.